everyone. This week we're going to be doing a drawing of a macaw. And a macaw is just a very large, colorful parrot. And the macaw we're going to draw is it's more of a close-up of the macaw. So it's a little bit more challenging. We're going to be drawing a little bit more detail. Here's the photograph that I used as my reference picture. So I did do another project of a macaw, this one, where you saw the whole body of the macaw, its tail feathers and everything. I did that with another class. If you'd like to do that project as well, you're certainly welcome to. But since that one wasn't as close up, it didn't have as many details. This one is going to be, like I said, just a little bit more challenging because it has more details on the bird. And before we get started, I'm going to show you just a few photographs of macaws. These birds are so colorful and so beautiful. And this is the picture we're going to use to do our drawing. Like I said, a little bit more of a close-up. And here are some real zoom-in close-ups where you can see the details on the bird's face. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start with just the basic shape of the macaw's head. So I'm going to draw a big curved line like this. And I'm just going to draw a curved line right here, kind of where the beak is going to start. Okay. And I'm going to draw the beak and his mouth in a couple different steps. First, we're going to draw this beak, and I want you to notice how it hooks and curves and points actually down and towards his own body. Often we think of a bird's beak as being like this, right? Going straight out. Well, this beak curves down and it actually points back at the macaw's own body. So we're just going to draw this big curve, and it's going to be very sharp, very pointy, and it's pointing down. See, it's going to point towards its own body there. Okay, and then right here, we're going to draw just a big letter U shape. See that, how it's a letter U? And then we're going to draw what I'm going to call kind of like a crooked smile almost. It's going to go in and up like this. So in and up. Might look funny at first until we get all the other details drawn, but... And then we could just connect it here and maybe just draw a little line right here, like that. Okay, now I'm just going to draw a big curved line right here. And over here, I'm going to draw a big teardrop or raindrop shape for the shape of his wing, and it's going to go all the way down almost to the bottom of the page. See how I did that? Nice and big, all the way down to the bottom of the page. And then this wing on the other side of his body, we're just seeing a little bit of it. So I'm just going to curve out and in like that. Okay, so again, we're just laying out the basic shape of his body. Next, we want to draw this little tree branch that he's perched on. So I'm just going to draw two lines on an angle like this. And if you want to draw, we're kind of seeing, if you want to draw kind of a crooked oval right here, like the edge or the end of the tree branch, you can do that. And then we're going to draw his feet and his claws. Okay, so the feet and the claws are going to kind of be like a letter C. And I'll show you what I mean by that. We're going to start at the top of the tree branch, and it's going to come up and down and around like a letter C. Up and down and around. See how it's like a letter C? And then I'm just going to add a couple more lines to show like the separation of his toes. I actually think that they are called toes, just like we have toes. And then he's got claws coming out of those toes at the end. So he's got these very sharp, curly, curvy. It's almost really the shape of the beak. The exact same shape, only much, much smaller. Now, if you want to move that over a little bit like that, you can. And if you want to show a little bit, you'll notice that you see a little bit of this other toe and claw showing from underneath. You can add that if you'd like. Okay, so now we need some more detail in the face and the head of the macaw. And I know it looks very complicated, might look a little overwhelming to you, but here again is my drawing. We're going to take it one step at a time. Feel free to pause the video whenever you need to. We're just going to break it up into some basic sections. So the first section I want to focus on is the white part of his face. Okay, so notice how it's very skinny here above the beak. Notice how it raises up a little bit, almost like a little hill where his eye is. So we're just really looking at it and we're paying attention to the shape of that white part. So remember I said it was skinny above the beak. So here's the skinny part. I'm just going to kind of draw a wavy line, and then I'm going to bump up like a little hill where his eye is going to be. I'm going to curve in a little bit like this, almost like a candy cane shape. And then I'm just going to curve down and over and connect with that piece right there. Okay? Looks pretty good to me. All right, and then we need to draw this black section. So we have a yellow, we have the big white part of his face, we already drew the beak. Now we just need this black part. So I'm just going to come down and curve around, and I need to maybe make a little line here to connect it with the rest of his body. Okay, no two macaws are alike, of course. Each one is unique, so it's okay if yours looks different than mine. You're never going to draw it the same way twice, so each bird is going to be unique, and that's kind of fun, right? That's cool. All right, so let me draw in now where this yellow part stops. So from here, I'm just going to curve down to the wing, just like that. Maybe I'll make that a little bigger. Okay, now we're going to draw the eye. And the eye is going to go right here underneath that bump that we drew. Excuse me. And we're just going to use a little bit of a football shape. But you'll notice that the football shape, it doesn't go side to side in this picture, in this angle that we're seeing the bird. It's more, the eye, the football shape is more on an angle. It's going more on a diagonal line than side to side. So that's the way I'm going to try to draw it. So I'm going to draw a little football shape like this. and a little circle inside it, like that. Okay. I think I want to make this beak a little bit bigger. I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger like that. Okay. And I think I'm also going to bring this line up a little bit. So, you know, sometimes when we're drawing, we have to make changes along the way. You don't have to keep it, you know, the first line you draw doesn't have to be the line you stay with. You might decide you need to change some things. So that's what I do. I start to draw and then I change things along the way if I see that something needs to be changed. Okay, so we're going to start outlining now. And I did the outlining in a couple different colors. I used black on the beak and around the face and down at the feet. And then I also used blue marker to outline the wings. So let's start with the black. So I outlined the beak. And here, I want these lines to be really thick and dark and black. So I might even go over them a couple times like this. So they're nice and thick and black. All right. And I'm going to outline the eye. And these lines, instead of just keeping them smooth, I'm going to make them, you might have noticed that I made them kind of uneven, little uneven jagged lines. I want it to kind of look like feathers. So I don't want it to be too smooth. So I might even just draw some little curved lines like this. Little curved lines up and down. Don't want to get too crazy with it, but I don't want it to be too smooth either. Something like that. Okay? And I am going to do this line in black too. And again, just a little bit. We don't want it to be too crazy, but a little bit uneven. All right, then I'm going to switch to blue. And I'm going to outline his feathers and most of his body with blue. And again, instead of a straight line, I'm going to add some texture, what looks like texture from the feathers, little curved lines like this. I'm going to do the same in his wing right here. So not too crazy. I'm going to come down and then I'm going to like stop and come up a little bit and then down and stop and come up a little bit like that. Okay, so curving down, stopping, coming up a little bit, down, stop, come up. And that's how I'm going to outline his wing. And then same thing over here, down, stop, come up. Just a little bit. Now, we don't want to get crazy. You know, we don't want it to look like that, you know, too crazy. We want it just to be subtle. Very subtle, like that. Okay, so inside here, inside the wings, we're going to give it, we're going to try to make it look like individual feathers a little bit. And, you know, if you're an older student or you've been in my class for a couple of years now, you might want to just really take the time to do a lot of detail here. If you're able to, that's great. If you're a little bit younger or you're new as my student this year, maybe this is your first year, maybe you just want to keep it simple, but I'll show you what I did. I just made these into separate feathers like this. Not too crazy, but I made them look like they were overlapping each other, like this. You might notice that as it gets down to the bottom, the feathers are going to get longer. So these are going to be really long. Look how long those are. Those are really long feathers. Maybe I want to add a couple extra here. And then what you can also do is add a line in the center of each one. So I'm adding a line in the center of each one of those feathers. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing over here for this wing. Not too many on that side. Okay. You might want to add just a little bit of blue, a couple feathers down here in blue, like that. All right, before we start coloring, well, I have to outline my claws, don't I? Or my feet and claws. So here's that, my tree branch. Okay, so now I have my feet and my claws. The only thing we need to do before we start coloring is we're going to do these really cool stripes in his face. And here's the photograph again, so you can see what that looks like. So basically, if you think of there being a line, maybe I'll draw a little line right here in pencil, going from his eye to his beak. Can you see that line? I'm just going to draw some kind of wavy lines curving this way on the top, and on the bottom they're going to go this way. And instead of just keeping it a single line, I'm going to add some thickness, and I'm just going to go up and down and up and down and up and down like this, just kind of making that line a little fatter, a little thicker, and kind of uneven. A little bit more uneven. Can you see that? Okay. So basically, I'm ready to start coloring. And what I'll do is I'll put this on fast forward or fast motion, but let me explain to you what I'm going to do first. I'm going to use some of this blue color in the wing. And what I'm going to do is color it all first, just one color like this. And then underneath each feather, I'm going to try to press harder like this, so it looks a little darker, like a shadow. In fact, you could also use a darker blue there if you wanted to. Now, if this is getting too complicated for some of you, that's fine. You don't have to do this step. But if you want to, use a little bit darker blue, like this, underneath each feather, so it's almost like a shadow. Does that make sense? And maybe next to, so they're next to. I'm adding a little shadow. You're welcome to try that. At the top, I'm going to color this green, and then I'm going to change into blue. In the center of his body, I'm going to color yellow, but you might notice that I also used some orange. And I tried to show those layers of feathers that you'll see in the photograph. See those layers of feathers? So I'm going to do that too. And so I'll just work on this for a little while. I'm gonna put it on fast motion. You can listen to some music and watch how I fill in my macaw. Okay, so hopefully you noticed when I was coloring, especially in the center here, I was always going up and down, and I was going in the direction of the feathers. And I pressed very, very lightly with the orange. I did not want to press too hard with the orange, otherwise it would show up too much. I just want it to be very soft and subtle, so I didn't press too hard. And maybe you noticed that when I was coloring the beak, I colored it once with black colored pencil. Then I went over it again, and I kept the top part of it light, but right about here, I started pressing harder so that it would look very, very dark and black right there. So I pressed much harder right there, and I pressed harder here too so that it would look very, very black. Anyway, there's our macaw. If you want to sign it, I usually always sign mine in the corner like this. If you want to sign your name or your initials, go ahead and sign it, and I would love to see your macaws when you're all done. Again, this is going to take you a while. This is probably, normally we would spend more than one class time on something like this. This would probably take us at least 2 classes. So take your time, pause the video whenever you need to. So I hope you had fun drawing the macaw this week. Don't forget to send me your artwork or post a picture on our Facebook page. And I hope you all have a wonderful week.